On January February, the Department of Justice dropped over 3 million pages of documents, 2,000 videos, 180,000 images, all connected to Jeffrey Epstein. And within hours, photographs surfaced showing a man who appears to be former Prince Andrew kneeling over a woman on the floor. But here's the thing, the photos are the headline. They're not the story. The real story is buried in what the DOJ didn't release. And from a prosecutor's perspective, that's where you need to pay attention, because right now, the most powerful justice system on the planet just told Congress it has fully complied with the law. And Congress is already pushing back because the math doesn't add up. Pay attention to this next part. Let me lay out the timeline because context is everything here. In 2005, Palm Beach police investigated Jeffrey Epstein, uncovering dozens of victims as young as 13. The case went to U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, who ultimately authorized a sweetheart deal. Instead of federal trafficking charges, Epstein served just 13 months on work release for state-level crimes. This agreement also protected his co-conspirators and halted the federal investigation. In 2019, New York prosecutors brought new charges carrying 45 years in prison. However, on August 10th, Epstein was found dead in his cell. While a judge later ruled the original deal violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act, the prosecution ended with his death, and no one was held criminally accountable. Now, fast forward. In July 2019, federal prosecutors brought new sex trafficking charges against Epstein, facing up to 45 years in prison. 6 weeks later, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. The official ruling was suicide, and the federal prosecution stopped. But here's what people forget. When prosecutors announced Epstein's death, they stated the investigation into the conspiracy and broader network remained ongoing. That word, conspiracy, is prosecutorial language. It means they were looking at other people. On January 30th, 2026, the Epstein Files Transparency Act required the DOJ to release all 6 million pages of federal documents. After missing the deadline, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche held a major press conference. He announced the release of over 3 million pages, 2,000 videos, and 180,000 images. He said that this release marks the end of the process and that the DOJ has fully complied with the law. But here's what they're not telling you. The DOJ identified 6 million potentially responsive pages, yet released only 3.5 million. That means roughly half were withheld. Justifications like victim privacy and ongoing investigations were offered, but the House Oversight Committee pointed out that the law requires the release of all unclassified records. Representative Robert Garcia called it outrageous, noting the DOJ is withholding 50% of the files while claiming full compliance. Representative Ro Khanna added that failing to release these files only shields the powerful individuals involved. Now, from a prosecutor's perspective, here's why this matters. When a law says release everything and the executive branch releases half, that is not compliance, it's a negotiation. The question is, what's in the other half? Let's talk about the released Prince Andrew photographs. 3 images show a man who appears to be Andrew Mountbatten Windsor kneeling over a woman. Her face is redacted. He's looking at the camera, his hand on her abdomen. The DOJ provided zero context. Also released were emails between an account labeled The Duke and Epstein. In 2010, Epstein offers an introduction to a woman for dinner. The response, would be delighted to see her. And then, will she be bringing a message from you? Please give her my contact details. In a separate September 2010 exchange, the same account suggests dinner at Buckingham Palace and adds the phrase, lots of privacy. Now, Mountbatten Windsor has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. He settled Virginia Giuffre's lawsuit for an undisclosed sum without admitting liability, and King Charles stripped him of his royal titles just months ago in an attempt to distance the monarchy. But the legal question here isn't just about Andrew, it's about the pattern. The files also reference Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick planning a visit to Epstein's private island in 2012. Email correspondence between Epstein and Elon Musk, references to filmmaker Brett Ratner, Sweden's Princess Sofia, Denmark's King Frederick, Norway's Crown Princess Mette-Marit, whose name appears hundreds of times in the released material. And among the released documents, an internal FBI document from August 2019, just 5 days after Epstein's death, It lists 9 persons identified as family and associates of Epstein. 8 of them are labeled co-conspirators. Most of their names and faces are still redacted. 8 co-conspirators. Only Ghislaine Maxwell has ever been charged. Pay attention to that number, 8, and remember Acosta's 2007 deal immunized co-conspirators. Maxwell was convicted in 2021. The Supreme Court declined to hear her appeal in October 2024. Her conviction stands, but 7 others at minimum have never been charged with anything. This is bigger than one case. This is a systemic failure across multiple administrations, multiple prosecutors, and multiple institutions. So, what happens now from a legal standpoint? The Oversight Committee has issued a subpoena to Attorney General Pam Bondi, demanding the full unredacted files. That subpoena has not been fulfilled. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has asked pointed questions publicly, including whether every document mentioning the word Trump has been released and whether all co-conspirator memos have been disclosed. Deputy AG Blanche pushed back on the suggestion that the DOJ protected anyone, claiming no White House oversight. The DOJ said it would pursue charges, but it's also withholding half the documents. You can't make that promise credibly. While simultaneously sitting on millions of pages, this raises a question that should concern every American, regardless of party. We had a federal prosecutor in 2007 who had the evidence to bring a major sex trafficking case. He didn't. He gave Epstein a deal that protected co-conspirators and silenced victims. Then, in 2019, a new prosecutor brought the case, and the defendant died before trial. Now, in 2026, Congress passed a transparency law with overwhelming bipartisan support, and the executive branch is claiming compliance while withholding half the responsive material. At every single turn, the powerful have been insulated from accountability. The victims have not. Virginia Giuffre, who brought lawsuits that forced much of this into public view, died in April 2025. She never saw a single person other than Maxwell held criminally accountable for what was done to her. This is what institutional failure looks like. It happens incrementally, deal by deal, redaction by redaction. The real question now, the one that should keep prosecutors, judges, and lawmakers awake, is simple. Will anyone in this network ever face real federal accountability? The documents already released don't tell a random story. They show a pattern, a network, operating for decades across multiple countries. But evidence alone isn't enough. Prosecution requires political will, and that has been missing. 3 million pages exist. 500,000 were dumped online with no index, no context, no roadmap. Oversight committees are demanding answers. The public is watching, but watching isn't justice. The Epstein case exposed more than one man. It exposed a system where wealth and power protected abuse. Every delay, every sealed deal, every withheld document was a choice, and the victims paid the price. This story isn't over. Accountability is still owed.